Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now, eh? It was only the League Cup. Nobody really cares about the League Cup anyway, eh? Back again for the Sorare CSC after elimination from the League Cup at the hands of Kilmarnock. We've got myself, Quinny, and Mark Patrick Rare, and I almost said Mark Patrick McBride there. Mark Patrick Rare, and McBride Ace. Guys, good to see you. Hail, hail.
We're on time tonight. We're on time.
Good to see you, boys. Hail, hail.
Aye, and we are on time, smash bang on time, which unfortunately the League Cup was not on time for us. It felt a little bit early, you know, and I think like the last couple, I think almost every season, there's always a game in the first, like, I don't know, say 12 where, you know, we don't turn up for some reason, and there's always a reason. But the weekend, you know, for the last couple of years, hasn't happened too often in the Cups. It's more maybe happened in the league. And it just feels like, yeah, maybe the League Cup was maybe just a wee bit too soon on the fixture schedule for us, guys?
Quite a tough away game as well, I mean, Kilmarnock beat Rangers as well, so they're obviously playing a bit better. They're you know, quite well organised under McInnes and things, but it's just one of those games. So poor performance though. I mean, obviously everybody will be pretty gutted about the performance. Sometimes you get a bad result, but I don't think they really played very well either, to be honest. So there we go.
Back from Polygon Land. Sorry.
Frozen.
I was away, traveling through the digital polygons, but I'm back. Yeah, that game, a horror. I mean, Celtic lately, a horror. Transfers that I think, to be fair, I think we covered for the entire build-up to the season kicking off. You know, there was a lack of real imagination, and, you know, we didn't really identify any of those players that had been signed that you could really say would be starters. So yeah, I think the recruitment's been poor. You know, there's not been the forget about this kind of squad playery element, because I mean, called it. I think, to be fair, we all agreed that there was no real marquee signings that had came in. We've lost quality. I think even the way that the Starfelt situation was dealt with, like, it felt a little bit desperate. And why did we wait that long, you know, in order to secure that, letting them play, you know, those kind of games so near to the start of the season? I just feel like a bit poor planning all around. It's a bit odd, some of the language coming out of Brendan's mouth, like about recruitment and looking for quality at the same time, then saying, you know, he's only a coach, he's not, he just takes what he's given and all that. It just seems odd, mixed messages coming out from him. I don't know if it still has yeah, thanks for that, Michael. But you know, like, I just feel like it's just I kind of, we've just arrived at roughly where we're expected to be on the back of that poor recruitment and losing, you know, some real quality players as well. But yeah, I mean, I didn't have to see all of that taken into account. I still didn't expect us to lose at Kilmarnock. Put two things aside, I mean, the penalty ruins the game. It's clear.
Oh,
I'm sure we'll get him back for both points. Maybe.
does anybody want police interrogation room instead?
That's it. Well, it was definitely a police interrogation of a match, wasn't it? You know, the game, McBride, I was saying to you guys before coming on, but the only way I could explain the game, it hurt my face watching it. It was a really painful game of football. It was just horrible to watch from start to finish. Mark Patrick, we've got you back.
Sorry, I know I'm having as much a nightmare as Celtic yesterday. Yeah, but yeah, all I was saying is just like, I just feel like that despite all of that, like, you know, should have still had enough to beat Kilmarnock at Rugby Park. The penalty was just an absolute shambles. You have to take that into account.
Yeah,
you know, that penalty gets given and scored, and we get through with the skin of your teeth, and we live to fight another day. I think you need to take that into account. But papers over the cracks, you should be going to Kilmarnock and beating them 5-0. Simple. And I just think that there feels like there's still something wrong. The communications are so all over the place. I don't know. I don't know going forward what we're going to expect.
I think there was a wee bit of, we've seen in this game, like a lot of the negative stuff that I feel about this match, and I hear a lot of people sharing, is it feels like Rodgers at the end, that it feels like under Lennon, that it feels like it was one of those games where we just had no idea about how to, open the door and go and make some shots. The goalkeeper, I don't really remember him doing anything for Kilmarnock, like ever, really for the large parts of the game. And for me, like it was one of those games where, see, whenever we're talking, especially on like these streams, we're talking about the quality of the squad and the depth and covering for different options and having different types of players at your disposal to cover all competitions in these types of situations. Like, you can't avoid the fact that everyone is injured, and you have to play Lager, Bielke and Navrachi in this team. And like, that was unavoidable. I don't think individually either one of them was like bad necessarily, but again, I can't say what I haven't heard other people say already, because it's the most obvious thing when you watch it, but they did look like they just met. It looked like, just watching, particularly because it was on that 4G Astros stuff, it did just look like a couple of guys playing centre-back for a team, if you know what I mean. It didn't look like a professional defensive partnership, in that sense. And, I did think that Joe Hart was decent enough in this game, actually. I was more happy with him than anything. But, when you've got that situation in, the one thing I was thinking, even at halftime when he's making changes, is why don't you just put on Iwata and play him anywhere, and then just kind of firm up that defence a little bit? And because it just felt like everyone was out of sorts and out of ideas. Like McGregor, for example, has been getting a lot of flack, which he didn't play good at all. Let's be honest. But McGregor's a guy that plays fantastically when he knows the team, he knows the system, and he knows this is the route to goal, this is the rule breaker, this is the way that we're going to get to, shots away and all the rest of it. And he doesn't play well when he looks like a fish, out of water. And that's how he looked kind of in that game. He didn't know what to do anytime he was on the ball. He didn't look confident. He didn't look sharp and decisive. And it just felt like, it was just one of those games where if you have the right pieces in the team, I think maybe Iwata changes the game if you bring him on. That might sound a bit weird because it's a defensive player, but you just then let the attackers have a bit more freedom. You can then maybe get the fullbacks a bit higher and make them do a bit more work, because they're covering in for these guys, because they're a bit, unsure, and walk them through the game and look after it and all the rest of it. But we don't have clearly all the options that Brendan feels are capable, because why wouldn't you, why wouldn't he make any of those types? Why wouldn't he make changes like that? Why wouldn't he play a different type of midfield, for example? I know he's played Odenholm and he was fine enough as well. But anyway, that's my kind of rant over on it all. So I just think like the game could have been won, but it's the squad of like when we're in that worst case scenario, when we don't have our best guys available, using the right pieces of the squad and the manager really knowing what's there for me.
Yeah. The squad's not as good as we think it is. That's the bottom line. I mean, we've got a lot of players in the squad, and we've got guys that are taking up wages as well that don't really contribute anything. But I think it reminded me of the game last season against St Mirren, where we rotated a lot, and we didn't really kind of start with like Jota or whatever, and it was a similar story. And I know what you're saying, Patrick, there about beating Kilmarnock 5-0, but I don't think a lot of teams will beat Kilmarnock 5-0 at Rugby Park this season. Like, there's a couple of factors, and obviously they are quite an organised team, and you're playing in that daft pitch as well, which I don't think it should be allowed in top flight football at all. But you can't blame the pitch or whatever for the performance. We were really poor, and it's still early days. But obviously some of these guys haven't played together. But I don't think the defence and everything was the biggest issue. It's not like Celtic were conceding chances left, right and centre. The problem was up to about the 85th minute or whatever, Celtic hadn't actually had a shot on target. So, in the previous games, like, you've scored like 4 goals and 3 goals, and then all of a sudden you're not getting a shot on target. So that's more of a concern, because when you're playing with Maeda and you're playing with Abada, and they play against a sort of low block, then they run out of ideas, and Ivanovic come on and all that type of stuff. But, you know, we never really created too much or as much as you'd expect, maybe with the pressure. So yeah, there's a lot of questions to be answered, but obviously it just shows that you can't be without Vickers, Hatate, guys like that, and still keep up the same performance levels. The squad is not at the level that we were bumming it up to be last season, because as soon as these guys are out of the team, then there we go. I know we beat them there last season, and I'm not blaming the pitch, but what I'm saying is there'll not be a lot of teams that will take 4 or 5 goals off Kilmarnock there this season, because under Derek McInnes at the moment, they're really
top 6 team.
Was that?
They're probably a top 6 team this season.
I don't think so. But
anyway,
but I think it's a good point. They're definitely, look. That's the Celtic Park, and the Kilmarnock are in trouble, plain and simply. But on that pitch, and it's not about making an excuse about the pitch, because I agree. I just don't think that, you know, it's conducive to play good football. But I think Kilmarnock have recruited well for being a wee diddy team, and they've clearly went more compact. They've got more of the type of players that McInnes likes and trusts. They bought the boy in McInnes from was it Hibs' name? So they've got a better team than they've got last year. They clearly beat Rangers as well. I think they're going to be definitely harder to beat, but going away, I think Kilmarnock will take some downs. And I think the SPL is actually stronger in general. I think Aberdeen are stronger. I think Hearts are. Have you seen them in Europe? Hibs in Europe are not terrible as well. So I think Kilmarnock getting into the top 6 is going to be massive. They might still do it. But I've seen a few folk there saying about Awata. I think, and you mentioned it as well, Quinny, absolutely said the same thing. Like, see, the thing is, if you don't rate Awata, let him go. Let him go back to where he was Player of the Year in Japan. It will help my Sorare team, by the way, as well. Let him go back there and be Player of the Year again, and I'll be happy. I'm sure we'll all be happy, and maybe Brendan Rodgers will be happy. But if you want to keep him, going to just put him on the pitch because he's quality. I actually find it insulting that he bought Lagerback or Laserbeak or whatever his name is into the team and puts him straight into that fixture. By the way, I think it's really tough for your first fixture to go into that alongside another centre back that's not played. You know, I know that Welsh was injured, so he couldn't have, but I just feel like surely we could have been a little bit more adventurous, a little bit more cautious, a little bit more adventurous, particularly with the centre backs. Should have put a Awata in there. Just giving them that game. Strange decision in my opinion. And I just feel like there's a bunch of guys in there that are now acting as scapegoats. I've seen some of the fans having a go at Maeda. It was just absolutely absurd. I mean, not having it. Absolutely absurd behaviour. Criticising the guy who's one of our best players. Maeda against Aberdeen. Don't know what you boys thought, but I thought Maeda against Aberdeen played his best game in a Celtic shirt. You know, to then go, he's horrific, can't pass the ball, and all these bizarre insults from Celtic fans. Guys, get a grip. These are our best players. These are not the positions we want to be. Haksabanovic, I'm on board. David Turnbull, I'm on board. These guys that shouldn't be. No, but genuinely, I bet you a few people were rubbing their hands when Turnbull got a game after me slagging him. Still terrible for Celtic. Get him out. Get some quality in. Let's improve the team, and because you put guys like that in the team, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get results like Kilmarnock. You want to in that first half against Aberdeen where David Turnbull looked like he'd never played football before. You know, you need to get players that are either, you know, on the same level or better, ideally better than what we've got in there, and we've not got it at the moment.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think as well, like I'm just looking at some of the comments here. We've had an absolute topper or two. Just one thing I want to say about the pitch is that it's definitely not an excuse, but it's definitely because again, there's been fantastic results there over the years, but there's also been very difficult games there. You know, it's not as if this is the first time Kilmarnock have beat us in their history or anything like that. You know what I mean? They used to have Steve Clark as manager, and I remember that being a pain in the ass. But there's no way, see guys like Kyogo with his wee shoulder thing or whatever, for example, there's no way some players when they go onto that pitch don't have like maybe a special little instruction, you know, so, you know, like he doesn't want to fall, obviously, particularly anytime, but especially on that surface. And I don't know, maybe, you know, thinking about Carter Vickers to last year, he never played on that pitch anyway, you know what I mean? Because it's like, you know, you're carrying something and it's too dodgy, so forget it. So even the guys that do play, some of the guys won't play, you know, so it's not like it's an excuse or anything, but it is a factor, you know, that's just stated whenever you play Kilmarnock away, because that is their pitch and it dictates the way the game can happen. And the point here from documentaries, I think, is pretty valid as well, of course, on that note. So I just wanted to kind of add that in.
And by the way, it's the same as Livingston as well. I mean, like that wee David Martindale built that team just off the fact that they would just suck points off teams in that wee stadium. So, you know, it's not just Kelly, it's any team playing on those pitches. Like, they're just a brutal surface to play. It's a top flight club, and I think we need to be taken seriously again as a league. We need to bin those pitches.
Yeah, I think you're right. No Scales. Was there room for Scales to maybe play in this game in hindsight, do you think? Does he play pre-season? Played all pre-season, you know what I mean?
Probably.
I don't think that the defence was a huge issue. I thought the middle of the pitch was the biggest issue. Like,
but it's a kind of synergy thing for me. But if you know what I mean, I think that's a kind of like the problem might be happening there, but the kind of source of it, from, you know, that's just the way I kind of think about midfield. I don't know.
I suppose a couple of times, like, Belky got the ball and they kind of launched it, so that wouldn't normally happen because you usually try and get the ball down and play. But it's a different style. Obviously, Rodgers plays a different style, but it wasn't really that exciting in terms of football as well. Maybe it's because of what we've got used to it. But as a transition, and, you know, under the previous manager, we lost the first 6 games. Like, I don't think we should really over dramatise this. What we need to do now is we need to get guys like Hatate and Vickers back fit. We really need them back in the team because we cannot afford to not have our best players in the team and keep up performance levels. And we need to actually go and sign some players that are capable of pushing the guys in the first team. Not guys at £1 million for South Korea, whatever. I know that some of these guys can be talented and they're good squad players and stuff, but I don't really see we've signed anybody that's actually, you would say, well, that guy's coming in and he's improving the team. In fact, Jota's left, Starfelt's left, so we've lost a strong defender, albeit a guy who's had his moments on the ball, and we've lost one of our kind of guys who would maybe come up with some moment in these big games. And the problem with Maeda and Abada is their specific styles of players. They're not guys that are going to dribble past players, or they're both quite quick and they play in a certain system, and they do struggle against teams that camp in. So this will happen at Parkhead as well, because we'll go to Parkhead, we'll play against a team, they'll sit in their 18-yard line and we'll struggle to create. So we need other guys to chip in there. That's where David Turnbull, albeit he's pretty useless away from home, actually he can be quite effective at home, because when he gets on the ball he can come up with a goal or whatever. But I mean, we said it in the previous shows, we've lost Jota, we've got all that money in, and we haven't actually bought a replacement. And that's the real criminal thing. We haven't actually went out and spent some of that money and got somebody with obvious quality. We're bringing in guys who are 22 that might be good players in 2 years' time. We need players just now. That's the problem. Maybe we'll get Jota back on loan if his team don't want him anymore. He's getting shipped out already, so there's some player for 27 million.
Yeah. Well, I said it in the group chat earlier on, but when we found Jota, he couldn't get a game for Valladolid, if you're in Glasgow. But So, it's one of those ones where we can go out and scout these guys. We can pull them out of somewhere and give them a go. Now, we've been doing that all over the squad, and it's frustrating when you're doing that for all of your purchases, because when we've got that kind of war chest there, the manager's comments after the game was quality, and that is exactly what we're saying here. Like, Jota's left, and without that next level quality, like, I think we're all huge Daisen Maeda fans here, and Daisen Maeda is definitely a Marmite character for a few reasons, right? But for me, like, undeniably, he's got fantastic qualities, but in games like Kilmarnock, and we've seen it a few times in Scotland, there's just some games where he's just not effective and he just can't do it. And that's for any reason. Who cares? It just happens, and it's why you need the difference. You need somebody totally different to change those systems. And you can say the same thing about every position of the pitch, stylistically, depending on your opponent. And that's what Jota gives you. That's what Haksabanovic threatened to give us, maybe it hasn't. And that's probably the biggest thing that we're lacking at the moment, is someone that can just, unlock the door. They can just do something.
So what you're, I mean, like, basically, like, what we're talking about here is a maverick player, right? And
yeah,
let's be honest about this, right? I mean, Jota is about the first 6 months that Jota was at Celtic, he was untouchable. He was just, him and Kyogo combining was just unbelievable. Some of those European games, unbelievable. And the SPL, just smashing teams, him and Jota. Probably more to do with the fact that we didn't have enough cover, and the two of them played 90 minutes every game. Then that's changed. You've seen towards the end, particularly Jota being subbed off more and getting rested the odd game, whatever. But still a remarkable player for Celtic. To get someone like that now, clearly we sold him to Saudi for 27 million. To get someone else in that, I've seen people were talking about that Daniel, was it Podence, the guy at Wolves. Terrible for us as well. And I hope we don't get him, because just not the kind of player that would be useful for Celtic, in my opinion. Not even at Jota's level, also, in my opinion. But if there is another player out there that we can get, that can be reasonable priced. I mean, there's plenty of them. Obviously, we spoke before about some of them other guys, particularly the in the Croatian leagues, for example, Austrian leagues, great players that are on a much lesser budget. I think those guys would be a great addition. I think we need help in those forward areas. I think singling out Maeda, and again, I'm not wanting to turn this into a Maeda defence club, right? But singling out Maeda, because I didn't hear the big compliments for Maeda after Aberdeen game. Go and look at his stats in that Aberdeen game. It was nuts. He absolutely someone mentioned earlier on about the pressing. Maeda's pressing against Aberdeen was incredible. His stats for pressing are like he's in his own entire world and I mean literally he is one side of the scale and the whole league is on the other side in terms of pressing. The guy doesn't get anywhere near the compliments he's due. Anyway, that aside, in terms of the players that are performing and can be replaced, I think in that midfield area just now, it does seem a bit of a disarray. You've got Turnbull, who, in my opinion, should be nowhere near the team. McBride's made a great point about Hatate. That moment, see the moment Hatate came on the pitch against Aberdeen, instantly we looked a better team. Just like instantly, the shape looked better. He was picking up the ball. He was getting the right tempo for collecting the ball, distributing it quickly, lifting his head. Turnbull doesn't lift his head, and for a guy at Celtic to not lift his head is not on for me. We're Celtic, not a wee diddy team. We need guys that can, when they're composed on the ball, when they receive it, to lift their head, look for the best option. Hatate looks like he's got 10 minutes every time he receives the ball. He's so composed and in control. And I feel like you've seen a wee dip off in McGregor. And I don't think it's because McGregor's been terrible or anything. I think it's just what he's got around him. He's got O'Reilly and he's got Turnbull, who I think are both meaning that McGregor's got to do more defensive work, because they're not going to track back. They're not going to allow McGregor to bust forward in the way that he would with Hatate, because look at Hatate's runs. Hatate runs back to his own box to win the ball back and, win duels. So you probably see McGregor getting a lot of flack purely because he has to work harder in that position. But then we expect McGregor to bust forward as well still. So I would say what 30-year-old McGregor is now, he's maybe not got that engine anymore. I'm not saying that he's not able to be, he's not able to run or anything, but I don't think it's the same McGregor as 24, 25.
He's not in goal with Kante or something,
Yeah, totally. I also just don't think I think see if we were smart, someone wrote in the comments earlier and they were right. Put Iwata in that position as the 6. That all your problems solved. Done. That's it. Let McGregor play as the 8, and in my opinion, it would be Hatate, but fair enough. So you'd put O'Reilly in there. Fair enough, and then maybe you could rotate between Hatate and would you call him Iwata and O'Reilly? Fair enough. I think that's a reasonable compromise, but to have it Turnbull, O'Reilly and McGregor, it is just not working, and it's really glaringly not working. We even tried that boy home, not working. Great when you're coming on and we're winning 2-0 and you're doing the flicks and tricks and David Turnbull's celebrating, smashing a penalty in against a Diddy team. But, when the back's against the wall and you need performances and, you need a bit of grit and you're looking around, you're 1-0 down at Kelly, you need a bit more quality than that when you're wearing a Celtic shirt.
Wouldn't I just love that? No, I'm totally with you on Odenholm, but I think what Hatate benefits from, and we've said it before on this channel a few times, but that Champions League campaign, see rubbing shoulders with the likes of Luka Modric, Toni Kroos and all these guys, like, it does something to these guys when they're developing. They see how they operate around the pitch, how they cover the ground, how they slice the T-boat, and you can't buy that. That's why teams want to play Champions League football, so that they can get that, so they can develop their game and push themselves on. The Odenholm, I don't think it was that great or anything, right? But I'm definitely not going to be. I'll be, give him the minutes. I don't think it was a bad call, because I think if you read the last game, like you say, Hatate made the difference, and if he's not available, then I can't really talk down playing Odenholm, and I don't think it was bad anyway. I think it was okay, but it's maybe again just a bit too soon for him to be that pivotal to the team. Yeah. That's probably how I would think about it. We're not going down this whole nuts and path again, but yeah, guys, like the treble is over, as it were, and it is what it is. And again, somebody mentioned it earlier, and I'm glad that we haven't spoke on it really, and I'll just address it to move by it. But like, you can't look at these games and say it was only because of the penalty decision and this decision with this red card, and what about that foul, and this guy did this and whatever. And yes, we know there was injustices all over the place, but that is part of the deal, and that is part of what you need to do at Celtic, and I think Ange really got that after his first month or two, is like, you're playing on a handicap. Like, if you give them a sniff, you're going to give them a penalty, you're going to get somebody sent off, you're going to get booked. It's just the way it works here, And if for us to get something, even with that bloody VAR, it has to be clear and obvious. There has to be no dubiety in it whatsoever. It has to be clear as day. So deal with it, man. That's what it is to be Celtic, and there's no change in that point.
that was one of the worst ones, though. I mean,
yes,
I know we've got that's why we're paranoid, but oh my god, that was horrific. He it wasn't even like clipped him. He just clean whacked into his foot. Like, it's not even a close one. I mean, there is an element where you just go, I don't even get what we're meant to do now. Like, this is just,
never mind the VAR lines. I don't know if you've seen the VAR lines on it, but it is ridiculous. Like, the guy's not even onside. There's two lines.
Do you know the thing is, like, see, genuinely, and I'm not. I don't want to turn this into excuses, right? Because I think we've all been fair in slagging our own team and saying we weren't good enough, right? I get that. At the same time, though, right? I don't think we complain about this, and I don't mean us. The fans probably complain a fair amount, but I think as a club, we should be going mental about this. I mean, that's it's just blatant cheating. Like, what else can we call that? It's just blatant cheating. The fact that you're like a guy getting clattered in the box, and then those lines, like you say, what even is that?
Yeah.
It's like it's actually just laughing at us now, and we're not doing anything about it. I mean, it is embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the club's job, 100%.
The lines were ridiculous. I mean, the first thing I said was, that's definitely offside. And then when you look to the still, it looks as if he's ahead. And I don't know how they've drawn the lines like that. I mean, I really don't. Anyway, the goal went, but obviously we need to address the other problems as well. We're there, Maeda's get beaten, the ball's been played across, Ralston's sleeping at the back post. I don't know who's lost the man, but I mean, the fact of the matter is, like, obviously Johnson comes back, he's straight back in. Greg Taylor's been very poor this season. I don't think this system suits him as well as he was suited under Ange. He looked as if he was doing quite well playing that inverted role and stuff, but I honestly don't think he would have started the Ross County game if Bernabei hadn't slept in. I just think left back is an obvious area we need somebody else in there as well. So we'll see, and we've still got a bit of time. Obviously we were chatting about it before, but still got 10 days left in the window, and whether it is Podence or whether we get certain guys in or whatever. But I think we do. We don't need another couple of guys in at 1 and 2 million or whatever, unless we've went out and done a fantastic piece of recruitment and we go and sign somebody like Hatate or whatever, who's just an obvious good player that we can get for that level. But if we can't get that type of deal, we're going to have to go out and spend some of the money. I mean, we must have loads of money to spend. We're guaranteed to be in the Champions League. We had an extra $1 million because Zagreb went out, so that boosted us up a bit. PSV will hammer Rangers, so that will get us more money as well. I mean, honestly, I cannot see Rangers beating PSV. They looked at an awesome team, and obviously said that last time. I think Rangers will really struggle against PSV. They're a proper good team under Bosch, and again that shows you a difference. Like when you seen PSV last season, and then I watched PSV playing against Sturm Graz, and Bosch had them playing really, really well, playing good football, passing, moving, all that type of stuff. And that's kind of all we're asking as fans. Like, if we've been hard done by it, Kilmarnock or whatever, that's fair enough. But it was horrendous to watch as well. It wasn't as if we're creating loads of chances and just in an off day. We did not have a shot on target for 80 minutes. So you've got to deal with stuff like that and identify what the problem is. But I don't think we should over dramatise it too much. Obviously we will, because we're Celtic and all that, and we expect to win every competition we win for. But we do have Johnson, Vickers, Hatate out just now, and we've lost Jota. So, and we've got, even at the end where Yang was crossing the ball in, and you're thinking this big a game to bring on and he's injured as well. Tillio's injured. Stephen Welsh signed a new deal. He's injured. We're hearing of Rocky might be injured. So there's a lot of problems, obviously, with injuries and stuff just now. But we need to adapt, because like a week in Sunday, we're at Ibrox. If we're going to play like that, we'll get beaten. We lost at Ibrox the last time as well. So let's not kid ourselves on and think we're going to turn up there and get a result. We're going to have to play better than that to go and get a result at Ibrox.
I think there's two things. I mean, firstly, I think that at any serious club in the world, for that summer's recruitment at Celtic, if you were running recruitment, you'd be really under pressure with your job. Like you'd be seriously being looked at as a failure and being replaced. At Celtic, where it's just, it's the same old stuff, where it's nepotism, and we're bringing in Lowell's sons to do the recruitment stuff. This stuff is not a serious club. We're a top 10 club in the world for income. We are a serious global player, but we're behaving like we're in the English League One, desperate for loan signings and all that. We need to start behaving like a big club, and I think the fans have got to demand more. On a personal note, I would rather that we sacrificed winning, this obsession with winning the treble and beating, all the Diddy teams to actually progressing in Europe. Although I have to add that based on what I've seen, I'm a little worried about that. But just to take McBride's point about Rangers, I've watched 2 or 3 of their games so far this year, and they're worse than last season. I don't think that we're going to go AI Brooks and smash them, but I'm genuinely not worried about playing them. And I thought they were stronger, I have to say, last year than this year. They've got Cifuentes, who's a good player in there, but the other guys they've got up front, Danilo's good, but he's not hitting the ground running. But Dessers, Lammers, the other boy, poor. And I actually, I'm not as worried about them over a season. And I think they've already shown up in the SPL to be poor. PSV will absolutely smash them, zero doubt about that. PSV are just a robust, well-oiled engine at defence. Guys like Ramelow, and they'll obviously get Boscali and Tezzi. I mean, these are proper seasoned top players, internationals. So I can't see them causing PSV any damage. But I think Celtic going forward now are realistically, we've got to learn for that. I think we'll go to St Johnstone. I mean, after all this negativity, I think we'll beat St Johnstone 7-0, and I'm really not messing about with that scoreline. I think St Johnstone are diabolical, and I think that we can pump them 7-0 without any real effort.
Well, before we get to the weekend, one thing I was going to say was, in the aftermath of the game and all the questions that went to the manager, basically a direct quote from him was that they would definitely look to sign a 26 to 28-year-old. That is a profile that they see as lacking in the squad. And like we said before, I think when we had Ange in charge, like the squad signings or the club signings were the guys that were older, Juranovic, Giacomakis and Starfelt, the guys that are all kind of now out, it would seem. So there's definitely a need for a wee bit more of that solid professionalism, that kind of age experience in the squad. Rodgers hasn't ruled it out. So on top of everything that we're kind of throwing around there in terms of the quality of the squad, it would be nice to see somebody who is, let's say, 27 and played in the Champions League once before, or maybe won a title somewhere before they came here. They're bringing something when they get to Celtic Park, rather than they're coming to Celtic Park to do these things for themselves, if you get me. What do you think on the quality of signings that will be made with 10 days to go?
Do you know something? Like, just one thing that was in my mind, I meant to say it actually before and I forgot. I think it's easy when we're anticipating players that are coming in, because everyone's so fixated on Jota was 27 million and he's gone. So everyone's fixated on 27 million being spent on a winger, roughly, right? I first and foremost think that the part of the pitch where I feel that we're not as penetrative as we were before is the central midfield attacking position. I just feel like, even despite we've got players in, O'Reilly and Turnbull there, I just don't feel that we'll look as dangerous or have enough quality in that position. And I think if I was Celtic right now and I was going to go to the market, I'd be going and spending as much of that on a proper established 10. And I like your profile, the 26 to 28, a proper 10 that was renowned. I know that we can't get him, but Tadic, for example, that type of quality would be right up the street. Someone that could link all of the play on the wide areas, and also just galvanize the central areas as well, whether it's assists or goals for those positions. I think another decent backup to play on the left would be nice, but I think a 10, a dominant 10 for £10+ million would be my first pick.
I'm not confident in terms of who we're going to sign, because I just don't the messages in terms of what's coming out is along the lines of Rodgers is talking about the club's got a succession plan and these guys there's names here and we'll move quickly and we'll replace people, and it's like a nightclub policy as well. It's like it's one in, one out and all that stuff. It's about, we've already like sold Jota, and I see your point, Mark, about obviously 27 million. I don't think it's just that. I mean, Celtic spent 7 million in Jota, and Jota was a guy I think we rated higher than that, and obviously the fee's a lot higher than we thought, but we have not replaced them. We haven't replaced them. We've bought in Yang, who obviously a good assist away from Aberdeen and stuff like that, but he's a young guy, and he could become quite good later on, but again, he's a kind of development type prospect. He's not a guy coming in who you're saying, oh, this guy's obvious quality, this guy's putting up goals and assists in our league or whatever. He's a guy who's come over from a team who's on the verge of relegation, and he might do pretty well in certain games, but we haven't actually gone and signed anybody, and you thought that's obvious, that is obvious quality, and that's the problem. The problem is the strategy. The problem is we're selling one of our best players, and we've not really actually replaced them. I don't think we've replaced them, and I know what you're saying about the middle of the park, and that's you notice a huge difference when Hatate's out. So I think that's right, but also we haven't done anything to actually replace Jota. And it's how long are we going to wait? We've got 9 days left or 10 days left now, whatever. Jota left ages ago. In fact, he's nearly away from the team that he's already went to, and we still don't have his replacement. I mean, like that I don't get it, because Rodgers should be, his message, he's coming out and he's saying we've got a recruitment policy and I'm going to fall in line with that, and I don't get why he's not coming out and or maybe he is, but maybe in the background he should be demanding that we sign somebody that's quality, because that result is a warning. That's a warning that if we don't do anything, we're going to be watching that shit all season. That's the type of stuff we're going to be watching, because it's all right saying you can play better systems and all that type of stuff, but if you keep patting out the same guys and stuff, it's not going to work. And it didn't work as well anyway. But the first game of the season we were playing, when Fura was dropping in, people were running beyond him and stuff, and whatever it was, maybe just the way that Kilmarnock played against that, just didn't really work that way in terms of that game. I remember at the end of the game, Fura was dropping deep and he was outside the box and he was coming to try and orchestrate something. There was nobody in the box. It's because he was going to get in the ball, because he was getting fed up with the nonsense he was watching in front of him, losing the ball, so he'd come out and get it, and he was trying to create something. But ideally, he was looking for Furuhashi in front of him, there was nobody there. So obviously there's a couple of areas we've got a problem with just now. One of the areas is obviously because of the injuries is O as well, because O, you might have brought on O, Furuhashi could have played a wee bit deeper, and O would have been in the box, but there was nobody there. And against Kilmarnock, we need a goal. You should be flooding the box with players, and there was hardly anybody inside the box. Every time the ball went into the box, it hit a defender. So I don't know if that's just the sort of end product type of thing, but we do need these guys back, and we do need to actually go and make one right good signing. I think even if we abandon needing a goalkeeper and stuff just now, because Joe Hart wasn't the problem against Kilmarnock. Like, Joe Hart was fine. The problem was we played really poorly overall.
This was a concern I had, by the way. I hope they've paid us up.
By the way, I said this to you before about the Saudi League, and I don't want to harp on about it, but I remember there's the boy that plays for Universitario, Alex Valera, went and joined that team. Al Fateh, I think they're called. I can't even remember who plays for them. Anyway, this was about a year ago, roughly, and he ended up coming back within about 3 or 4 months because they didn't pay him. And I think a lot of people are really forgetting this whole side of, like, football and that side of the world. There's loads of that stuff goes on, like mental stuff where deals getting done, and everyone's all rubbing their hands and stuff, and then they're going, right, where's the money? So it's actually a really good point, because there's so much of that. And I bet you there's loads of that going to happen. That league is like, it reminds me about that ITV digital deal all those years ago where everyone was spending all the money, and then they went, oh, wait a minute, we don't actually have that money. Yeah. And then it just collapsed. so many clubs, well, a lot of clubs were close to dying. But yeah, and someone else said about, let's not buy overpriced EPL players. I think that we can afford a bunch of them, but I think Podence is a great example of the kind of guys that we shouldn't be going for, because I think that he's the kind of guy that's, he's got a reasonable name just because he's played in England. Put him in a Celtic shirt, I'm not so sure he's going to have Jota levels. And I might be wrong.
I wouldn't mind Podence, to be honest with you. I think in general, but I'm definitely against the whole that profile. Like, if you mean the Premier League player that isn't quite cutting it, I'm not really in that boat. But Podence was really good at Olympiacos, and I think he could probably be really good for us. From the little bits I have seen him at Wolves, but in general, yeah, I don't like that. I don't like to shop in that market. I don't think we get much for it. I think we get bumped more often than not. And
I've spoken to a couple of guys who big Wolves fans that we have in our Discord, and they have basically been like, "Have them, please."
Fair enough.
It's not good feedback from. It's not like, "Oh no, you're taking our Podence." They are absolutely delighted to see the back of them, and generally that's not a good sign from a player that you're wanting to come in and do damage. I think he's a decent player, by the way. I'm not saying he's not good, but I think our fans are expecting Jota levels, and considering that he probably would.
Jota can't get a game in Saudi Arabia, but so we've got to be realistic here as well. I mean, obviously Podence is one of the names that's been thrown in, but I think what people are crying out is for somebody that's a bit more established. I mean, we could name guys in the Croatian league that might improve a team, like Lavaja, the guy at Hajduk Split. He's a cracking player. He puts up huge numbers in terms of goals and assists and everything every season. So he's the type of guy you could go and you could sign that would give you a different option near the top end of the pitch, maybe play a wee bit off a striker, that type of stuff. So the players that are out there, it's not just a case of saying we want to go and sign guys like that. And there have been guys, I mean, Haller went to the EPL and he was horrendous, and he went to Ajax and he was really effective. What you really want is to sign the right type of guy, but not a project. We've got the squad is completely stream full of projects. What we want is somebody that we think can be equivalent quality to the likes of a Jota. And Maeda and Jota were two different types of players. Maeda and Jota tended to play on either sides of the pitch, where Maeda was pressing and Jota gave you a different option, and sometimes even they rotated. But we didn't play a lot with Abada and Maeda, and Abada and Maeda are really effective in certain games, but they were really nullified in that game against Kilmarnock. Didn't really create anything, and Maeda, I love him as well, but Maeda sometimes doesn't really have any product, and that's the problem. Jota was a few games last season where he scored goals from outside the box, so he came up with huge assists where he would produce something, whereas obviously looks as if we're struggling at the weekend. So I think it's a different type of option, and Podence might not be the answer, but somebody that's got that sort of technical ability is probably what we're looking for, I think, if we're going to sign somebody up there.
I'd love to see Lovric, who plays for Osijek in Croatia. I've watched him play about three games this season. Great profile. He fits Quinny's profile so well. 27-year-old, can play as a 10, but can also play in a kind of wide left position. Love to see him at Celtic. Just absolute. He likes a dark green score as well, fitting in the hoops. But he's absolutely brilliant. He's so far this game played 4, scored 2, assisted 2. Be a brilliant player for Celtic. And he's strong as well, but technically he's one of the most gifted players I've seen. He's just naturally brilliant at dribbling. He'd be a fantastic player. I think Osijek signed him for like 2 million or something. So probably get him for about 5, I think. Maybe slightly more.
Yeah.
Interesting. What's it? Okay. Yeah, and he's a bit of a maverick type, you're saying?
Oh, I totally. He's just one of those guys that's just not. See. I remember I watched him play last season for Osijek, and he got the. It was one of the Odyssey feature matches we watched, and it was what the pitch was like a throwback to the 1970s and 80s. You know, the big mucky pitches, and
Yeah.
he's down the left wing, and there's guys running at him to like chop him down, and he's gliding past them. You know, like just nipping the ball past him, but really carefully navigating his way around them. Cuts the ball back, and the other guy taps in. I was like, wow, that is a proper maverick. Like, you know, like going back to those proper old school 1970s Mavericks, and he's like that kind of talent. So imagine putting him on, you know, a great pitch like Celtic Park and actually getting, you know, some good, you know, better quality players around them. But yeah, there's a bunch of others. Like we talked about the Austrian league. There's so many guys in there that are brilliant. There's Austria Vienna are probably underrated in terms of, you know, the types of players that you could nick off of them. Like I like the boy Fitz that plays for Austria Vienna. He's more like a 10, but he kind of sometimes plays up top as well. But just an absolute monster at decisives as well. Guys like that, just as you say, like, okay, Fitz is a little bit younger. I think he's about 24, 25. But these types of guys, like, why we're not getting linked with them is beyond me. You know, like guys of real stature and quality. You know, never hearing these guys, but guys that are doing fairly well in Sweden, you're like suddenly snapped up for 3 million. You're like, what is happening in our scouting network?
Yeah, because like Sweden, Poland, you know, these types of countries are definitely like a rundown from like the Austrias and like the Denmarks and these kind of Belgiums and these types of places, you know, where we probably should be shopping in a bit more frequently and like we said before, like get a bit more actual proven quality in for the money that we're after. I'm really hopeful, like, you know, like the Lovric one, I quite like that. He's kind of almost broke into the Croatia squad. But ideally, like that, you know, yeah. Hopefully the manager gets his wish and we get some real quality into the team somewhere. I'm not as convinced like you, Mark. I'm not convinced it will be a left winger as such. Might be an attacking mid. Might even be another forward type player that can maybe play free role in some sort of shape, or something. I don't know. But there's 100% a need and a lack there for that kind of maverick, that creative player, 100%. So I wouldn't mind them being a little bit older because with those guys, you really need to know that they can deliver it. You know, whereas with young players, as much as they're exciting sometimes, like, it'd be great if we went and tried to get, like, I seen Zakarian's moving to Sociedad for like 14 million euros or something. I don't think that would have been beyond us, you know. Certainly, we've done deals with Russian clubs recently. But the worry with Zakarian, for example, is that it doesn't work. And then that's 14 million down the tubes for some reason. Whereas a guy that's maybe 26, 27, you've got a wee bit more confidence that, well, the guy's done it in 3 leagues already. And as long as he's fit, he'll score free kicks and he can whip a ball in and he can dribble past 4 guys and whatever. So yeah, I hope we somehow get that kind of profiling that can make that happen. We've had a lot of chat towards the weekend, but I don't think we'll need that type of player necessarily for the weekend. I seen a comment earlier saying that Stirling Albion beat them 4-0, or Albion Rovers, somebody beat them 4-0.
No, it was Stirling Albion. It was. I remember Albion. It was just horrific. And by the way, that was at that horrible stadium, McDermott Park.
No, not a fan.
No, I actually just find St Johnstone to just be such a. I mean, we complain about the way that we're ran as a club, but St Johnstone, I remember not so long ago they were shutting down stands and stuff like that. You know, just such a proper Diddy team that's just lacking in any ambition. You know, and it's frustrating because they've got a great catchment area there, and they've got just zero ambition, and you can see that in the types of players that they've got in the last 2-3 years. But I think this year they're a shoe in to get relegated, as in straight 12th position. Bye. The games I've seen, they're just pathetic. I mean, was it Ross County they lost that first game against? I mean, Ross County are poor, but yeah, I fancy us to slaughter them, really slaughter them.
Yeah, I really hope so. And I think we should get that wake up call reaction from the team, shouldn't we? After going out 1-0, and it's like after that, because after this game it's a derby, so there's no more time after that. You've got to get ready for basically next week for this match. Got to show that you're up for it. Got to get the fans on board. Got to get the feel good atmosphere back in the changing room. And we hope we come out swinging. Somebody mentioned, I think it was one of you. I don't think it was a comment. The Vroche is maybe injured. Was that one of you that said that?
I think it was McBride.
Yeah, I don't know how good the source is, but they're saying he might be out as well. So we'll see if it's confirmed or not. But they're saying he might have a hamstring problem as well. So obviously if that happens as well, then we're really relying on the likes of Vickers coming back, because this weekend might not be as much of a problem, but obviously the following weekend you're going to Ibrox as well, and I think Alistair Johnston's back in training, wasn't in the squad at the weekend, but you would imagine that we probably want to give him some minutes before we go to Ibrox as well. So Ralston tries his best, but he's not a brilliant footballer, and obviously we've conceded the goal in that area at the weekend as well. But it's not just him. Obviously Greg Taylor really tries, and he had moments where he was quite good last season and stuff, but his general performance levels at the moment aren't really that high. And we're talking about areas we would like to improve in, and we're linked with the young guy Merlin at Nantes. And I think as a sort of attacking fullback, a young guy that's somebody we could go and spend 6 or 7 million on. And there's nothing wrong with having this strategy where you buy guys and you want them to have resale value, etc. But what's the point of selling Jota for 27 million and then just sitting on the money? I don't get that, right? We've talked about it before, about how we were in the Champions League. We couldn't commit to actually bringing guys in because we didn't know we were getting the money. Now we've had a huge sale, and we've got the Champions League, and obviously Ange has left, so that might have upset things a wee bit. But Roger's been in a wee bit of time now, and we still haven't actually had any proper signings in. So what's the problem now? What is the actual issue we've got now? Are we getting Jota been paid up over 10 years at 27 million or whatever? Or, I don't know. I mean, we know we're going to get the money for him and stuff, so I just don't get it. But maybe what Rodgers is saying when he's saying that thing about the recruitment is that he's not really had any of his types of players in as yet, and he always has said that after the Ross County, he even said after the Ross County game that there might be 1 or 2 coming in. So there must be things being worked on in the background that we don't know. And obviously we were also linked with Kieran Tierney, we were linked with Scott McTominay and guys like that were never ever happening. Paddy Roberts, all that type of stuff. And I'm not really that bothered about actually. No, I'm not in the toilet, the prophet. I've just moved to a different room so that I'm getting some peace.
I love that you you gave him his full name there, the prophet.
I'm just in the middle of decorating the room, so I've got my Ravchik and I've got guys like that. I'll be up on the walls and stuff soon. So don't worry, I'm not in the toilet or a police cell or anything like that.
See, what is the status of Hatate and Carter Vickers' injuries? Do we know?
Well, I believe Carter Vickers is not certain to play Rangers, and I was going to say what Patrick's put into the chat here that what would we think if the centre backs was Scales and Lagerby at the weekend against Johnson? Imagine that was the centre backs.
I don't care.
I mean, I don't think. Honestly, I think McBride could comfortably get a wee. At least an 80 at centre back against St Johnstone at the weekend. But
at least.
I mean, but I think the big question is Ibrox. But I take it's CCV's entirely out until then. Is that?
No, that's not what Brendan said before the Kilmarnock game, that they would need to monitor Hatate and Vickers over the coming weeks. So he never gave any sort of time frame or anything. He just said we'll need to look at them in the coming weeks. So he didn't rule them out. He didn't say no, they're going to be out for 2 or 3 weeks. Said we'll need to look at them again. So that suggests to me that they might be there or thereabouts soon, depending on how they're actually doing. I mean, if Vickers has one leg, then you would probably want to play him at Ibrox because you're going to be under a lot more pressure in that game, aren't you? And I think Johnson as well. Alistair Johnson plays pretty well against Rangers in general. So if you could have him on the bench at the weekend and maybe give him 30 minutes or whatever and get him up some minutes before that game, it would be good to get Johnston back as well.
Yeah, I think Alistair Johnson makes a big difference to the defence, and I don't know. I think that this game probably comes in good time for him. I think we'll see Alistair Johnson probably start against St Johnstone. That's a bit of a tongue twister. It didn't sound like I said it properly the first time around, but yeah, I'm not too sure about the centre backs. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Carter Vickers was maybe fine. I could see him not playing in that Kilmarnock game anyway, like just down to the pitch and obviously surgeries just went through and whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a surprise there in that sense, especially if that is the quote from the manager, McBride. So, fair play. I think it's got to be Taylor. It feels fancied over Burnaby at this stage. It doesn't feel like Burnaby's got much of a shot to play this match, I don't think.
I don't think he likes goals. I think it's just straight up. I mean, Brendan is incredibly stubborn, as we've seen in his previous, and actually as we've seen in his entire managerial career. There's certain players that just they've got one chance and one chance only. I thought Burnaby, with his pre-season, might have got a shot, but he's not even getting 5 minutes. So I think he's not getting in my opinion. It's just really down to as if he's going to replace Taylor, which I don't think he will. I think the weight of all of the attention on other areas will take priority. I think maybe eventually, but I don't see it this window.
Yeah. I think if he can get one, he'll take one, but it's just a matter of...
You said that like there's agents are getting around like big gold watch salesmen in a barras.
It's maybe more like for the club. Aye, if we could get one, Peter Hall says, here's a £5 million left back. He'll any bother. That's all he does is he just takes the players he's given, and he coaches them. That's what he says.
I think that by the way, someone said there's an OBE boy saying was looking forward to the Champions League before the season started. Now it scares me. Well, that's pretty much my feelings. Was like I really, I mean, looking at the quality of teams at the top levels, and we are scrambling about to, put a defence. Arguably that whole defence doesn't start for us in our strongest team. It's a big concern going forward.
Sorry about the acoustics, guys. I'm in a new room, so I am not on an alien spaceship as far as I'm aware. Or I'm not getting probed either, just in case my face looks like I'm getting probed.
The midfield is probably where we've had the most pain, I think, from last weekend. McGregor's got to play again. Will Turnbull come back in? Will he stick with home? Will O'Reilly play? I think he probably goes with the same team that played Ross County, which would be Turnbull, O'Reilly and McGregor again.
Yeah,
but it doesn't really help us for the following game, does it? Because I don't think you'll play that against them at Ibrox.
I think he'll. I mean, Rodgers is clearly not a dumb manager. He's very astute. I think he knows. You've seen the way that he hooked Turnbull off at Aberdeen. He knows that Turnbull's not good enough. And I'm clearly listening to this show when I've slated Turnbull. I think that Turnbull, if Hattati's even 50-50, he'll keep him and wrap him up for that Rangers game. I think you're right. I think Turnbull starts this game for sure. Slays them. And by the way, see when Turnbull scores a hat-trick or whatever against St Johnstone, don't come back and digging me up for it because it's a formality. Quinney would score a hat-trick in that game, and Quinney's a decent enough player, by the way, but this St Johnstone team are absolutely diabolical.
That's a nasty rumour I don't want you spreading. It'll get me into trouble one day. Yeah, I hope it's goals galore for sure. Because we're going to have some quality teams rigged out. I know, McBride, you'll be doing your lineup builders and deleting them over and over again, as have I been ahead of the weekend, because this is one of those fixtures where you line up the forward cards, don't you? And then it's just, what can I build behind them and what podium can I maybe attack?
I don't have any defenders left at the moment, I don't think. Obviously, Starfelt's left, Novrocky and Lagerbielke aren't on Sorare yet anyway, so even if you want to buy them, you can't buy them. Ralston, if Johnson's fit, might not play. Greg Taylor I wouldn't pick at the moment anyway, because he's been rotten. Well, he did get an assist, I think, the first game. I've been a bit harsh on him, but pretty poor, obviously, the last 2 games. And Vickers probably the main solid selection. You think he would rack up a decent score and passing the ball about and all that type of things, but he might not be fit. So actually, might be a difficult one in terms of stacking. But you definitely can go from midfield forward, and you would expect that there'll be a few guys there that will pick up decisives. You think Matt O'Reilly might rack up a big score just in terms of probably having 9 or 10 corners and set plays and attempted assists and all that type of stuff. And Turnbull's probably a good selection for this game as well, particularly in Sorare, obviously, because he's been pretty average. He'll be a really good sort of cap player, etc. as well, because he could easily go and do a 70, 80 or a 90 or whatever, and his cap costs 40 odds or something, so he probably it's a clever selection for some of those caps, but it might not be an easy game in terms of actually stacking, just defence wise, not many cards even available on Sorare. So
yeah, that's a solid shout. I didn't realise his cap was so low, especially with him banging out that 80 in the first game.
Yeah,
but yeah,
you could actually go in the U23. You could go Abada, Turnbull, and O'Reilly. Yeah. I think those 3 put out. I don't know. You could who else you've got to put in goals and defence there, but them 3 I think are going to get solid green scores comfortably. So if you are thinking about your U23 stuff, which I know you boys will have them out as well, massive scorers. I think at least one of them is going to get a 100.
I think O'Reilly's always on the cards for it these days, isn't he?
Yeah. If he gets a decisive, then he's going to be an 80 plus anyway, even with just 1 goal or assist. I think that's pretty likely. Yeah. It's just you would like to stack these games, when you'd like to kind of go the whole hog and just hope the whole result goes in your favour. But I just don't,
So are you McBride? Are you? I mean, you seem to be fairly confident about Alistair Johnson coming back.
He's in training already, so we spotted in training before the Kilmarnock game. He wasn't involved in the squad, but then so that's the only sort of question mark there. I think if anything, maybe Ralston will start and then Johnson will get some game time. I think they'll share it a wee bit, but I don't know. It depends Rodgers obviously has been. Awata played all the pre-season games, and Ralston came in, he'd hardly any game time or whatever at all, and straight in at right back. So, he obviously likes Ralston as well, but I do think that Alistair Johnson's got to come back into that position. It's no offence to Tony Ralston at all. Alistair Johnson's just a better player than Tony Ralston. I think that's my opinion on it. But, we'll see if Brendan agrees with us, and actually he's a guy who's done pretty well against Rangers, I think, in games as well. Those games suit him. I think he's always up for it. So there we go. But it's the rest of the defence is the problem, I think, because obviously in these games you'd maybe want a high base centre back in there, and you could go into this game and there's no covered cards playing in centre back. Just because Vickers injured, Starfelt's left, and the other cards haven't come on the platform yet. So unless we get Celtic cards tomorrow, in which case everybody will be running to buy Novrocky and then find out he's got a hammy.
Aye, that'll be it. I've actually got O'Reilly and Abada lined up in my U23s. I'm hoping for a wee Trubin debut for Benfica, and we can get a wee bit of under 23 hoops action.
I think
with
Samuel
Trubin
Suarez
in
will play.
Fantasyland.
I don't think Trubin will play.
This weekend again?
No.
No, I was
Suarez.
reading about I was reading the coach, the Benfica coach, was talking about, because I sold my limited of them. I had a decent wee turn out of that, because I'd like to. I have a feeling that as soon as the new cards come out, his price will go down, and I like the Shakhtar cards. I'll get them back, but I was reading the coach saying that he wants Trubin to spend time integrating and learning their system, which won't be that difficult because Trubin at Shakhtar played, so much out from the back, and when he's played for Ukraine, he's basically coached that entire way. So I don't think it'll be too long before Trubin's in there. But when Trubin comes on board, he's going to be the most expensive goalie in the game, in my opinion, because he is just a freaky goalkeeper. He's just special. But,
Aye,
yeah.
Some buzz, man. I can't wait. I hope he plays this weekend. You're negging me out, but McBride, that it's not going to happen.
I don't think he will. I don't think he will. No, I read a bunch of. I read the manager talking about how he's integrating him into the team, and so he's into their style. So I don't think he will play this weekend.
I would look out and see what happens though, because the other boy was supposed to be going on loan to Firenze, and then think Odysseus took the huff about not starting, and then he ended up out the squad. So I think if Suarez is there, he will start. Anyway, it's Celtic CSC, so we're going into Sorare now and dreaming about what we're going to win at the weekend.
Well,
we have that 7-0 line that Mark's promising us. So
odds on Edward is starting for Crystal Palace tonight. If anyone's going to watch that, he's in good form for me, and he's not going to win me anything this week. But I think this St Johnstone game will be definitely popping some bottles. I think after this one, because it should be goals galore, and it should be. And with the likes of Dyson Maeda and Kyogo now picking up the sort of AA game we've seen, particularly in the Ross County game. Maybe Aberdeen as well. Obviously, the game we had at the weekend wasn't scored, but then Celtic power could be in the attack stack again. Which hasn't really been there for a while with all those Ange rotations and sharing around the decisives fairly, and that
Throwing a curveball here, Quinny. No Tierney in the squad again tonight, and apparently the news is he's been told he's no future at Arsenal.
Ooh.
So that's an interesting one, because I mean, from a point of view of increasing quality, if he was available even on loan, would it be worth pushing the boat out a wee bit on wage to, because we could spend a few million obviously on a left back, and they could be similar quality to Bernabei or whatever again. But I mean, if Tierney was available, I think that would be an obvious upgrade in terms of quality.
I would, and by the way, I just got his rare card in as well. It's good timing. I think yes. I endorse that rumour. I think, look, Kieran Tierney is a world-class fullback. Bottom line, you don't need to. I know that I'm doing my Donald Trump. Believe me, nobody does left back like Kieran Tierney. The guy is just class. I think that he would come into that left back slot and he would just do the damage. I mean, if we could get him, I think for particularly the European games, he'd be brilliant. If we could get a guy of that quality, he just perfect. So yes, I hope that rumour comes true. Genuine quality.
I think he's the best left back we could possibly get, but I find that something stops me endorsing it, if you know what I mean. Like, oh yeah, that'd be great. 'Cause it just feels too on type, on brand. Going back to the well, go and get that guy, because he's same as Rodgers. He's clearly the best guy we could ever hope to get. If he wasn't a Celtic guy, he wasn't a Celtic fan, we would never get him. So let's just go and get him, because we can get him. I don't know.
He's not happy either, is he? I mean, the real thing there, and I can see why now maybe Arsenal are shipping him out, because he came out and somebody said about him being injured or whatever, and he said, I've been available. So he was kind of almost coming out against the club in terms of saying, well, I've been available and I've not been picked. So that immediately you see a tension between him and the club where he's saying, well, I have been available and you're not picking me. So I think that's going to be resolved. Obviously, there was other rumours. I was thinking about this anal, this probing that we were talking about earlier. Yeah, I mean, if he's available, then why not try and do it? The problem is the wages and stuff in it. So he obviously went down there and he trebled his wage. But I mean, if Arsenal can't get him onto somebody else, if he's just sort of cooked his goose in terms of the EPL and nobody really wants to take him and they don't need a left back in Saudi Arabia or whatever, like, you just never know. Because I watched the Arsenal thing when he went down there, the kind of all or nothing thing, and he was talking about like how unsettled it was to be missed home and all that type of stuff. And maybe he does want to come up here and play for a season or whatever. I know it's not a long-term signing, or we might not be able to afford him, but like it's an obvious improvement on the quality we've got. So I think mind a bit on that then.
I think the thing with Tierney is, I mean, how long is that he's been away now? 4 years?
It's not been that long, is it? It probably has.
So he's been away. So it's not like he's been away for a season or two. He's been away for a good amount of time now, because he won the FA Cup, didn't he, in his first season?
Yep.
But you look at now, and that documentary, the Arsenal one that was on Amazon or whatever it was, he just looked like a wee guy that was just shell shocked, because he just, like, you could tell that being in that city just wasn't for him. He's obviously just came from Glasgow, going there. And it looked like it genuinely affected him. That wee guy with the chef pal, it just seemed to be like his best pal. And I think if Tierney was to come back, I think slightly in disagreement. I think that's him back for good. If he came back to Scotland, I could see him just settling again. I think that's a good shout, and a good that would be the Celtic left back position sewn up for a while, and I couldn't see Taylor leaving, because Taylor would just Scott Bennett at that point, wouldn't he? He would just go, oh, wait a minute here, I could stay at Celtic and lift the Premier League trophies and and get that delicious wage. So yeah,
get that dose of beef.
Yeah, exactly. Not good for Sorare, but you know what? I actually think Tierney could be just freakishly good at Celtic in real life, but Sorare, always will.
And then, I've said the tax stacks, but I think the front three picks itself will be Abada, Kyogo, and Dyson. I think it goes without saying. Just wanted to say that, because I don't think we had stated it as such. But guys, we're going for a fair old time. We're expecting that we're not that bothered about the League Cup, as it turns out. We didn't care about that. We're backing Brendan to go get some quality. Brendan, go and make the board do it. Go and make the club do it, and just make sure that they're bloody good at football and they can actually win us games. And I think we're going to batter St Johnstone. We're happy about that.
Yeah.
7-0. Let's be having
7-0. Heard it here first. To everyone that's joined in the live chat in particular, live chat's been bouncing tonight. Thanks very much. Make sure to like the stream. I meant to say that earlier, and I always forget. Don't forget to like on your way out, guys. Hail, hail, and we'll catch you next time.
Hail, hail.
Evening, guys. Hail, hail.